to the Wholesaling Inc. podcast, America's the world's number one podcast when it comes to wholesaling real estate. Each and every week, Tom Kroll, Cody Hoffman, and myself try to put together the absolute best instruction and the best interviews from around the country to bring you the exact steps that you need to take to be successful in your wholesaling business. Which leads me to an incredible professional located here in Phoenix, Arizona. With me in my market, it is Mr. Drew Davis. Say hello.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yes.
Now, guys, this is going to be an incredible interview because Drew, you truly are like an engineer mind, right? This is your background. This is what you were. This is what you were working with. This is what you were working for. I mean, you were a corporate man.
I was all in. I drank the Kool-Aid. It was going to be 30 years, 40 years career, and then, a pension or something like that, right? You guys know what that is?
Yeah. So you come from, did you go to school? Did you go to college? Did you, let's break you down from Drew as a little guy growing up, thinking the way that you were raised, the way that you were thinking to what you became, or what you have become.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what, folks? I have a background and a story. My backstory is probably a lot like many of yours. Came from a loving two-parent household, strong family values, and I was raised with the mantra that you go to school, you get good grades, eventually you'll be able to get a good job, right? Mm-hmm. So you can go and support your family.
Yeah.
And so I did just that. And I think that one of the things that was easy for me was school because, my parents paid for grades. It was, $20 an A or $10 an A, whatever it was.
Mine too, yeah.
I found that it was easy. So I'm like, I want to make some more money. Let's get better grades. So, I went through school. I went to the University of Arizona down in Tucson, bear down, and I studied engineering. And the short thing I want to share about that was I had no idea what to pick as a major as a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And so I said, Dad, there's so many majors boxes on this college app. What do I fill out? What do I put? He said, son, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, well, I want to be rich. And he looked at me and he was kind of like,
I don't think that's serious, a box on
right?
there.
There's not a box. I don't see a box. Where's
Yeah.
Wealth 101?
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? You could be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer.
Right.
And so he said, you're smart enough to be a doctor, but you don't have the discipline to go to school till you're 30 years old to start making money. I'm like, you're right, I don't.
Yeah.
What else? And he said, you could be a lawyer, and this time was the mid-90s, and the OJ case was going on. And he's like, you could be Johnny Cochran, or you could be a public defendant making, pennies, and no one, lawyers sometimes get a bad rap, so he's like, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
You're smart enough, you're great at math and science, go be an engineer, and while you're at it, pick electrical engineering because they're some of the highest paid engineers. I said, okay, and away my life went, down that path.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like I was in love with this stuff. I just went through the paces to get her done.
Yeah.
Graduated, was hired fresh out of school, worked for a big company. I worked for IBM, and it seemed like the perfect storybook tale. I did it. I did everything I was supposed to. Had success in corporate, and then what I found the tricky part was I started a family.
Yeah.
And what you find is once you get to the point, if you're privileged enough to cross the six-figure mark, which used to mean a lot, now it seems like it's, whatever.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was doing well, but the problem was I was going to have to continually make sacrifices for my family to give the job more and more time.
Right.
And that just didn't sit well with me. And I'm thinking, man, what am I going to do? How do I, manage this? And you get to a point where you realize sometimes there's a point where you have to jump. You got to cut the cord. You got to say, hey, look, I'm going to burn the boats and I'm going for something. And for me, it was initially just changing jobs.
Right.
For the higher pay, you get what you're worth. And then you realize I just moved toilets.
Yeah.
I just shifted to a different toilet, same sort of junk, and had another baby and realized, gosh, to get this good pay, I got to keep running around the nation, hopping on planes, selling and hustling. I'm like, this doesn't feel right, but I'm successful. Look at all this money I'm making. And it's like, what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
And so eventually I got to the point where it was time to make that decision. And, part of that was my wife had gotten out of corporate a little bit earlier.
Okay.
Because we said, look, you're not going to be miserable. We have a newborn baby. She was hating life, and I said, we got to fix this. And she said, look, I'd like to be able to start wholesaling houses. There's a local guy in town that'll mentor me. And I said, let's go for it. Worst thing happened, you go get another job. So after she went and replaced her income in year one from corporate, the running joke was, now you're going to retire daddy, right? Let's get this right.
Yeah.
So that really just took a couple of years, and I think it was June 2016. It's been 3 years now since I fired my boss, and the wholesaling that we'd been doing had brought in $100,000 into the household. And that's kind of one of those moments where you say, maybe we can, cut the ties and make this leap.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And that was kind of when the next phase of the journey began, is this unknown territory of, I was just trained to be a corporate guy through and through, and I drank the Kool-Aid, I believed in it, it seemed like the right thing, but my life experiences were teaching me different things.
Yeah.
And eventually I had to go with my gut and what felt right and fire my boss.
Well, it sounds like your wife wanted to do it. I mean, how did she even find out about wholesaling real estate? Did you guys go down this path of, we read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then we liked real estate, and then
you guessed it.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah. And so I should have covered that part. So we picked up the book, right?
Yeah.
We got exposed to Kiyosaki's teachings. We're like, oh my gosh, we've never experienced anything like this. And when we were getting serious in our relationship, this is like 2009, and she's like, I want to be an independent woman and buy my own house. I'm like, great. So when we get married, you can bring something to the table, right?
Yeah.
That's my mindset at the time.
Yeah.
I said, one problem, I'm underwater and can't sell, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right around that time, some ad popped up as like free 2-hour course on real estate. I'm like, cool, I'll go there and learn how to be a landlord.
Yeah.
Little did I know I was about to enter a super funnel
Got
of
it.
education. And no regrets at all, but 5 figures in training courses later, it was like we were in the real estate game.
Yeah.
But the problem was, not too many people brag about their wholesaling in 2009 because everything was on the floor.
Yeah.
So we tried it, and we did some stuff, and we shuffled around, and we just crashed and burned, said this doesn't work, stuck our head in the sand, went back to work and just managing the rentals. But then when we had our first child, and I saw how miserable my wife was going back to work, and I was like, we got to fix this.
Yeah.
And there was a local gentleman in town who was doing 100 deals a year and had international money. He needed a place, so we started teaching a class, saying, I'll teach you guys for free. I just need you to bring me deals, right? So she joined that, and she was being mentored by a gentleman by the name of Dan Valentine. You may know his name.
Yep.
Rest in peace.
Yep.
Great man, great mentor, and she became the star of his class.
Love it.
And because all she did was take action.
Yeah.
Everyone was there to soak up the knowledge. She was there to take the action, because her motto was, if I don't grind, the baby doesn't eat. It was that simple. She was very motivated. And like I said, she replaced the income and then just kept going. She's a fiery redhead, so there's no stopping her. And that's when we started to see these are real checks. These are real opportunities. There's a real chance here to change your life through the real estate vehicle.
Yeah.
And the more we believed, and we did put up the high commitment, and we didn't quit.
Yeah.
And eventually we got to a point where she built and built and built, and we were building together, but she was all in. I was still working the job. And it got to the point where, like, we've got some momentum here, and it's actually almost a hindrance for me to stay working for somebody else, because what could we do together as an unstoppable force?
Love it.
And it's easier said than done now that I look back, because this is 10 years ago our journey started just taking classes. But now all of a sudden I've been free for 3 years. She's in her 6th year of being a full-time entrepreneur, and we're loving life. Things are great. We just had our 3rd kid, and we just feel so blessed. Yeah. We took that chance, and now it's like life is rewarding us for not being half butt about it, half stepping. We went all in, and that's where you get the results.
Well, and I think that just the incredible thing that I took from that was a couple different things. One, there is a huge difference between people that sit in trainings and sit in local meetup groups and sit in and get this knowledge that they have and the education that they have, but they don't filter out what is the instruction.
Right.
Because what you were saying is, your wife, what is her name?
Her name's Risha.
Risha. She took the action. She filtered out all of this education, all of this stuff, and she filtered it out to what can I do, what action can I take, and then she started taking it. And then all of a sudden it starts to pull you into it. She's pulling you into it. You're already there.
Yeah.
You want that commitment, but you've got all these responsibilities.
Exactly.
You've got bills, you've got rentals, you've got, kids. I mean, kids, the joke is a child is a 40-year mortgage with a high interest rate, right?
Agreed.
And you have 3 of them, right?
Got 3 of them.
Yeah, right. So there is big responsibilities there for sure. So she went, and everybody listening, everything comes down to instruction. We're going to get to instruction in this because Drew has an unbelievable system and process for doing his lead follow-up that you have to stick around and listen to, because it's going to be the difference between getting the deals, taking all your leads and getting a good amount of them through and getting paid on them, or just wasting your time and wasting your money. So make sure you stick around for it. But so you're going, your wife's going, you guys are now a team. It's 3 years ago. How was it sounds like you were cautious enough that you had at least some amount of money set aside.
Yep.
There's an old saying that you don't, this is from my buddy Pace, that you don't get off the horse you're riding until you saddle the next one. Right?
Yeah.
So you had saddled the next one with wholesaling going, right? You guys were in that while you were still working.
Yeah.
And so then you were able to jump off comfortably. How did the transition go?
It was scary as all get out. I kid you not. I mean, I'd gone. This is what I'd gone to school for.
Yep.
You know, was to just be a corporate guy my whole career. So the idea that I was not going to do that. I mean, the ultimate pivot. And it was one of those things where I could see the proof in the pudding. We'd had a huge month. It's like, oh my gosh, most people don't make that in a year. We did this in 1 month. Wholesale.
How much did you make that month?
It was $100,000.
100,000.
June 2016.
Six-figure month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me.
It changes it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It changes what you believe is capable. But it changes, and I talk about this a lot. I challenge everybody in my TTP program, and I say they owe me a $50,000 deal.
I like that.
They owe me a massive deal, because once that happens, your brain chemistry changes forever.
Yes.
You go from this land of belief to fact. Beliefs are great. Believing in yourself is great. Building up that confidence is great. Having that check in your account, that wire in your account, the fact that your actions got paid on a massive scale of 50K plus, it changes your life forever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's like octane fuel, because everything else, like you said, people are trying to believe till they could get that belief check. And even then, it's like, all right, this is kind of real. But then all of a sudden you see numbers where it's like, whoa, okay, this is real money. And this isn't a fluke, right? Just because we had one big month, we had other big months. It's like, oh my gosh, this is silly to keep doing what I've been doing and feeling that way. Yeah. But the transition wasn't easy, because, when you make that decision to jump, you might plan for it, like saying, okay, I'm going to go this different direction. These are the challenges I might face. Here's what we got to figure out, managing expenses, all that. But the bigger thing was, like, I didn't really think through what the exact A to Z plan was going to be. It's kind of like you hear about entrepreneurs. Yeah, we're the type, we jump off the cliff and we build the plane on the way down, right? You worry about that stuff later. We're just going to move this direction. Yeah. And yeah, it was scary, because in your head you're thinking, man, it was about 150 grand a year I was making, so I was comfortable in that regard. And I'm thinking, I just walked on my whole career. I had a solid reputation. I mean, people knew what I could do. It's like, all right, why would you just flush that? It's like you went from doing that to doing this. I don't even understand. Is that stuff on HGTV? It's
exactly. Is that infomercial that I hear? Yeah. Invest in real estate, right?
Yeah.
So you run this from your house?
Yep.
The whole business. Awesome.
No overhead, virtual office, right out of the house.
Yep.
Real simple.
And when you started out, you talk about the month that you got out, $100,000 month. When you started out, what were you doing to get leads?
In the very beginning, very, very beginning, it started with door knocking.
Yeah.
Started with door knocking because, again, Risha was the first one out of the gate, right? So we're going to test this out with her taking a leap of faith to go get it. And as a single female, for all the ladies out there, there's that part where it's like, certain interactions, seller visits, knocking on doors. She was smart about it, though. She said, I'm going to only knock a handful of doors in an area I'm comfortable at, where I already know the values of the home. So you get out of your rookie status of, I don't know how to comp and figure out the ARV, get that out of there. It's daytime. She was only going to do it for 30 minutes. And she literally, it was one of the last houses. She's like, all right, I'm going to knock these last 2 or 3 doors.
And what were they? Were they pre-foreclosures? Were they just rundown properties?
They are actually, it's the same neighborhood we live in now in North Phoenix. Yeah. So she was comfortable with the area. She was just randomly knocking doors. She just needed to take action.
It wasn't a specific list. It was literally just in the neighborhood.
It was the list. It was the names on that block was the list. And like literally the last door that she knocked on, the person had, dad was getting old, sick, that whatever the deals were there, and ended up being our first wholesale assignment She made 10 grand,
Awesome.
closed in 7 days. So this is one of those, like, those don't typically happen. You knock a bunch of doors.
Yeah.
It was probably like 10 doors, 15 doors.
Yeah.
The last one she knocks ends up being a 10K assignment fee, closed in 7 days. That was a belief check. And
Yeah.
then from there, you know, it went on and we started trying a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everything works, but doing nothing doesn't.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
So in the early days, it was leads like, you know, just knocking on doors locally
Yeah.
and looking for the FISBOs, looking for the property with the high weeds in the lawn,
Yeah.
you know, and just basically
Typical
going
driving
whatever-
for dollars
yeah,
type thing.
classic stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing fancy at all.
Right. And you would go to the doors. You weren't getting their phone numbers and calling them.
Nope.
Right.
Just knocking on the doors.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that's exactly how I started, and that's how I got my first deal. Was knocking on a door of a neighbor that was the caretaker of a vacant property.
There you
And
go.
she gave me the phone number to the owner who lived in New York, and I was like, all I need to do is get phone numbers. So
Yeah.
that's what led me down the path of skip tracing phone numbers, getting it going. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was like, this is powerful. But at the time, skip tracing was so protected.
Yeah.
And now in 2019, I mean, you could go to batchskiptracing.com, put in TTP code, and get any numbers you want.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get the actual phone numbers for the people that you're looking for.
That's beautiful.
It's incredible.
It takes all the detective work out of it.
It does. So, did you door knock because you didn't have you weren't comfortable investing a budget because you were making $150,000.
Right.
You can't tell me that you didn't have money to put into marketing. Now, some people watching this, you don't have a huge budget, or you're not making that much money, or maybe you have a lot of different responsibilities that you're paying for that you can't throw a lot into marketing. Like, was it just you didn't want to, like, you know, throw it out there and hope and pray, or you wanted to get like you wanted to get like a proof of the process? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, we were all in, but we were kind of toe dipping because we didn't know what was going to work. Because
Right.
again, we had tried to wholesale in 2009. We bought some bandit signs, we stuck some signs in the ground, we
Yeah.
did some basic stuff where everyone's kind of flapping and splashing whatever
Yeah.
they said to do out of the class.
Yeah.
But it wasn't happening.
Got it.
And we didn't have the mindset of longevity to think, you know, like, follow up with these people or try to call them again. So we figured, oh, they're just not motivated, so
Right.
you kind of give up.
well, I think in the beginning you really hope, and it probably happened that with your first deal is you're looking for the lowest hanging fruit. You're looking
Yes.
for the people that mostly, and when I say lowest hanging fruit, it doesn't necessarily mean the biggest deals. It means you caught them at the right time.
Yeah.
It's the timeline part of the process that really you're like, oh my gosh, they're ready to sign the agreement now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you're starting out, typically if people aren't calling that they need to sell it right now, you're kind of like, well, they're not motivated. I'm not
You're
going to
sitting
follow
around
up
waiting.
with them. I'm going to wait for somebody to come along that's ready to go.
Yeah, and
Right?
we weren't ready for the direct mail because we had heard, and that's, again, folks, don't just listen to what you hear.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, guys are out there spending 10, 15 grand a month on
Yeah.
direct mail. Don't even
Yeah.
bother because you can't compete. So we were looking for the cheap ways. Door knocking, bandit signs, we were doing yellow letters out the wazoo.
Yep.
Then we got upgraded and bought like the yellow letter printer and, you know, a couple
Oh.
other things as we slowly made those steps.
Yeah.
And then we got into, you know, more advanced techniques later, but it was very rough around the edges and rudimentarily. But brute force and grit will get you there.
Right.
So it doesn't always have to be super fancy high tech.
So what does that mean? Brute force and grit. Like what I mean is, what was your schedule like? Like, what does that mean for somebody out there that they have that brute force, they have that grit, they just don't know what direction to put it in?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that we did take, and I'm going to go ahead and reference some of the education that we did get.
Sure.
One of the things we learned early on when we were just splashing around not making anything happen was the concept of like a time budget and a time grid.
Love it.
You know,
Love it.
and doing it for your business. Block off the time for exercise,
Yep.
for date night,
Yep.
you know, for kids, and then block off the time that you're grinding for your business. Because I was still punching the clock and she was out. So in that phase, a lot of it was her learning to optimize how to spend that time, and it really was the gateway to us starting a life hack.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she's a mom, and it's like, okay, you got to get the kid to school, then you got a couple hours, and then, you know, next thing you know, you got to pick the kid up.
Yeah.
And, you know, then there's chores and the baby diapers, and we tried the cloth diapers in the beginning. It was like, oh my
No.
gosh, all we did was laundry.
Yeah.
But the point was, she had this epiphany that was like, gosh, if I could just, you know, make 5 more calls a day. If I could get 1 more hour of time to make calls, either outbound or follow-up,
Yeah.
I could do 1 to 2 more deals a month. And back then, we had assignment fees and $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Nothing super spectacular, but an extra $5 to $10,000 a month just by making some adjustments. So we started to hire out, getting the house cleaning and hiring out other things and placing the task in front of us that were going to be the highest and best use of our time, as opposed to just responding to the minutia of life that drags us all down a lot of times. So she got more efficient with her time, and that's where the grit got effective, because you apply some brains to the brawn, and then all of a sudden you're a bulldozer.
Well, and I talk about it on this channel a lot, is time blocking. You have to time block it. And I talk about it in the perspective of lead generation, talking to people, right, picking up the phone, making the calls, and then also the lead follow-up, right? Making sure that is time blocked. So you're not on social media. You're not getting the emails going crazy. You're certainly not watching the news. You're not doing all these things that are creative avoidance, right? Because if you literally commit, even if it's a half hour, if it's an hour, whatever you can, to like really, really, really trying to have quality conversations with distressed property owners, you cannot lose. You can't lose.
Simple. You got to be talking to people.
Right. Well, I mean, beyond just cold calling, I don't care how the leads are coming in. I obviously do. That's a lie. But whether they're coming in from marketing or you're going out and you're prospecting, if you don't have that time blocked, it's difficult. And let me give you just like kind of from my perspective, it's very difficult for me when I go home to have the hat on of businessman. It just is. It really is, like during certain times. You know what I mean? If it's past a certain time, or if the kids are expecting to be around me and they're loud and they're crazy and you're trying to like figure it all out, but there is a mental switch in there that's like entrepreneur mode, dad mode, husband mode, all these different things, all these different roles that we have, right? And if you can just slice it out, slice some time for that entrepreneur, that real estate entrepreneur, real estate investor mode, then you can truly get some work done. And I am telling you, you do not have to be doing this for 100 hours a week, 80 hours a week, 60 hours a week to get the ball rolling. Even an hour a day, like you were saying, even an hour a day starts building it up. Right?
It's the focused effort is where you see the results. So many times, especially here in the information age, we get these shiny objects. They're all beautiful, amazing things. We want to go chase every one of them. One of my mentors once said, you ever try and chase 2 rabbits at the same time? How many do you end up catching?
0.
Got to be focused.
Well, and so that leads me to, you've got, I first was introduced to Drew, surprisingly, because he lived just down the street from us, but in St. Louis at an REI Black Book, you were on stage and you were giving incredible value when it comes to, okay, I got a lead, now what? Right? So let's break down your process. Let's break down, like really give people the meat and potatoes of what you do once a lead comes in. How do you make sure that they either convert or you get rid of them?
That's a great way to talk about it. Well, number one, again, regardless of the marketing type that gets the phone to ring, those are all independent, because the process by which you deal with that lead is going to be your own tried and true method. You want to have that consistent process. So with us, it essentially starts with that call coming in. We want to establish some quick rapport with the seller on the phone, understand what's going on, what's the situation as quickly as you can. You want to touch and connect, and then be able to get
What
down
do you
to
ask
business.
them? Let's give them specifics.
Right.
Like somebody calls in, I call in, I'm like, hello, I got a voicemail from you. Who are you?
What's this about? What are you calling me? Well, I'm an investor in the area looking to pick up properties. Would love to talk to you about yours. Are you interested in selling? Tell me a little bit more about what's going on.
So you want to make sure that first and foremost, when it comes in, you're filtering out people that are interested in considering an offer.
Exactly.
Okay. So now they are. So I like looking at this kind of like a flow chart.
Yeah,
You'll love this
go.
because the end in your mind. But it comes in, the call comes in, goes here. Yes, they're interested. Okay, they're interested. Now what? What do you ask them?
So one of the next things we ask, what's your situation like? What's prompting you to sell? Is there any particular reason you're looking to sell? Motivation. Okay. One big thing we want to understand is, are you in any kind of time crunch to sell?
I love it. This is going back to those 4 pillars. So I'm baiting them into it. But timeline.
Yeah,
right?
timeline.
So
Yeah,
you go
what's the
from
timeline to deal
motivation
with this thing?
timeline. Okay.
Yeah, and we want to understand that because that's gonna dictate the priority that we deal with that lead. Because with our marketing method, we have a higher volume of leads than most people, but they might not necessarily be the right quality. So we want to put them in the right bucket quickly: green, yellow, red. Keep it as simple as that: hot, warm, cold, whatever.
Yep.
So we find out about the time crunch. The motivations, it matters, but it's a little bit less important.
Right.
You know, you could be downsizing, you could be going through divorce.
Yeah.
But you know, if either of those mean you're really not ready to sell for
Right.
3, 4, 5 months,
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, well, we'll put you on the follow-up
Yeah.
and make sure that we stay connected so we're top of mind when the time comes. But
Yeah.
we really want to get to the people that want to do business now.
Right.
So a lot of our questions are focused on getting to that time frame that they need to act. We do try and ask simple things over the phone. Do you already have a number in mind? Is there anything else that would prevent you from selling the property if we're able to agree on price? You
Yeah.
know, do you have the brother that's the realtor, the sister that's still living in the place and needs to get her life together to
Right.
move out, right? So we want to understand the life situation so we can just have that as background, because the main thing we need to do is get eyes on the property, inspect it,
Okay.
so we can make sure that any number that we give them is going to be good and hold up.
Got it.
We do share the number that so if it's a first call, obviously we're going to get back to them if we don't have the address right then. We're not trying to comp it on the phone, like, hold on, I think I'll be in this
Because
range.
Drew gets a lot of his leads from ringless voicemail.
Yes.
Okay, so he puts out a bunch of ringless voicemail. They come back in. They don't necessarily come back with the address ready. So you have to get the address out of them. You have to get the name of the person. You got to get the right phone number for it to call them back. You got. Do you talk to them about the condition of the property?
We'll ask if there's anything glaring, you know, any major issues with the home, or have you made any major upgrades
Love
to
it.
the home? Because
We
people
ask the
love
same.
to share that. Oh, well, I did the roof.
That's what I'm telling you.
Okay.
The condition of the property is always the first thing that we go after because it opens up the conversation.
Yes.
And you know, the longer they talk to you, the more they're gonna feel comfortable with you. The
Exactly.
rapport is gonna be stronger, and they're gonna be. They're not going to stiff arm you as much. They're not going to be as guarded with their force field, right? And they're gonna get you some of the answers that you're looking for. So okay, so you get all that information. You're looking at it, and you see most important to you is timeline.
Yep, most important the timeline, because you know,
Awesome.
condition, we're buying these things as is.
Right.
You know, whether it could be a fire damaged home. I got a guy that deals with fire damaged homes,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so the exit is less relevant. So we'll get the conversation as much as we can get out of that call, some good rapport establishing the information we need. We always have a timeline that we'll get back to them, you know, sooner is better, especially if they're motivated, you know, like 24 hours. It doesn't take that long to comp a property.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll do our back end research and get back to that person. Now the next thing that we're literally trying to do is, if it's something we like and we want to go after, and we feel that we've got a good rapport established with that seller, we look to ink the deal as far as the contract
Right.
goes over the phone
Yep.
before we visit the property.
Love it.
The property visit is just a validation
Yep.
of the numbers that we've discussed from our due diligence.
Yep.
All right, there's a hole in the roof you didn't tell me about. We're
Yeah.
coming down off that offer.
Right.
So
Yep.
typically what happens, we go there, we see it, everything's good, great, the contract's already signed.
It's amazing, but real quick, it's amazing how much you can understand about the condition of the property from Google Maps.
Yeah, that's why we don't have to
Google
go.
Maps and Google Street View, you're like, okay, I got it.
Yeah, and Phoenix is spread out. I
Yeah.
mean, we used to do it. We'd always, get to the property, and it's like trying to meet somebody in Queen Creek and surprise in the same day.
Right.
It, this is like 75, 80 miles
Yeah.
rough. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's over 50 miles in driving distance in Phoenix, depending
Right.
on where you're watching it.
Yeah.
So trying to run around town for seller visits during the day is not always going to
Yeah.
make the most sense. So
Right.
you want to condense that as much as possible to the ones that make sense.
Yep.
You see a smoking hole in the earth from Google Maps,
Right.
you could probably skip that visit.
Right, got it. And then from there, okay, so let's say they're not ready. Let's say that they've got a longer timeline. They have whatever situation
Yeah.
that we run up across. They've got a tenant in there until, for 3 more months. They've got somebody, they're going through a probate situation. They're out of town,
Yep.
and they don't want to close until they can go in and get all the stuff out of the property.
Certainly.
Right? Like all these different things kind of push the timeline a little bit. What do you, let's give them like a step-by-step, let's give everybody a step-by-step on what is your lead follow-up process.
All right. Well, our lead follow-up process is pretty simple. Number one, we want to make sure we have all the contact information that's relevant. Is
Yep.
this the best phone number to be contacting
Okay.
you on? I need your email address, those sorts of things. And essentially what we'll do is we'll verify, hey, we'd love to, the time's not great now. And you try and validate those objections because sometimes they're just dragging their feet and they can't make a decision. Sellers are storytellers sometimes. So we'll get an understanding of, depending on the lead, is it okay if we follow up with you in about a month or so, right? And the idea there is we do a couple of things. We like a multi-touch follow-up. By default, we just stick them on a standard email drip. We have a great follow-up that runs about 2 years in length. And a quick aside is one of our most recent deals that we closed last year on a rental. The seller came back to us and said, hey, you know what, I'm calling you guys because you've been reaching out to me 2 years and none of these other guys that wanted to buy my house stuck around that long. So I know you got to be legit. And we inked a deal. It was a great deal, cash flow property, seller financing. I mean, just... And it was a 2-year-old lead. And we'd forgotten about the guy, but the emails just kept tickling.
Awesome.
So email is the bare bones basic. What we'll also do is we'll give calls to them periodically, depending on the lead and the timeline. And we also
how does that pop up? That pops up in your CRM. And this is REI Black Book.
To be fair, we have a pretty kick butt CRM system. It's like an all-in-one business automation tool called REI Black Book. We've been using the platform for almost a decade, and it's great for everything we do.
It's so robust. It's bananas. But let's go back to the days before you had this robust email follow-up and text message. You press a button and it does it for you. What would you do to follow up? I mean, if people are out there and they just have leads printed out or they have leads, you know what I mean?
I would say have some nicely colored sticky notes because in the beginning that was our system. We just had sticky notes for everywhere. Keep this seller around. If it's this bright pink square sitting on the computer monitor, you're eventually going to look back up at that and say, oh gosh, the February 15th date. Now it's March 15th. I should probably call them. So we were very scattered in the beginning and didn't have a great follow-up system. We would follow up, but without a system, you kind of struggle. And so we weren't the most efficient back then when we were still playing Frankenstein and buying all the cool tools off the shelf and trying to stitch them together. That was not the plan. But now we're a little bit more sophisticated, but phone calls are critical. And sometimes as simple as just dropping a voicemail because you can tell when the seller isn't that motivated right now. But if they have that impending event, a situation coming up that they can't avoid, you can drag your feet up until October 1st, but then is the auction date or then is this other event. So we'll let you get into that procrastination time, but we're still gonna follow up and we're gonna increase the follow-ups as that impending date approaches. Right? So it's situational specific a lot of times also.
Love it. So you've got it set up automatically with a lot of the tools in REI Black Book, but you're also making those calls.
Yes, we do make.
See, I think that is absolutely critical. Like in our business, we use Investor Fuse for the task management.
Gotcha. Yep.
So that the acquisition managers, Julie and Alejandra, know who they're calling that day.
Exactly.
And they have anywhere it just depends. I mean, they could have up to 30 people that they're calling, 40 people that they're calling that day, but they know once they go through that task, then it's done.
Okay.
Right? You know what I mean? You're taking it to the next level with giving these people emails, and do you automatically text as well?
Yeah, so we'll do a little bit of everything. The main thing is they'll just be on a standard email drip follow-up. And what we'll do is we'll have our own tasks pop up when something's due, and we've got options. Depending on the most recent conversation that we had with the seller, what we'll do typically is we want to monitor what is their affinity to our responses. Like, our system lets you track, are they actually open the emails? We sent you a dozen, but they didn't open one. Guess what? Email's not the way to get a hold of this guy. So send them a text, send them a voicemail. If they never take our calls, but we see they're opening our emails, we'll keep emailing them.
Love it.
Or we'll try text. So we like them all. We don't pull up on people and knock on their door for the follow-up.
Different people want to be communicated differently.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah.
And what you're saying, it tracks it all. Right?
And we mix it up just to test which is going to be the best follow-up, because that guy that's not that motivated, you don't really know if he's going to pick up your phone call.
So truly, how many of your deals come from the first call, or how many come from lead follow-up?
That's great. That's a great question. I would say it's probably About a 50-50 split.
Awesome.
Believe it or not.
Sure.
Yeah, we get a lot of people that, if they're motivated, they're ready now.
Yeah.
And we know how to make sure those deals get converted. We're not dropping the ball with a hot lead. That doesn't happen in our world. We convert those. But the ones that aren't ready, the follow-up does a lot for us. And it really is just basically still being patient enough and to be around, because what I found in the very beginning, you'll fall in love with your leads when you don't have enough. But it's a deal. I think it's a deal. We might be able to make it a deal. If you had 10 other real halfway deals, you wouldn't even waste time looking at this thing.
Well, that's a big thing. The big thing, you have to build a robust pipeline.
Yeah, you got to have a pipeline.
Because I see it every time. If you have one deal pending, one deal going, if that deal falls out, you are crushed.
Yeah.
If you have 15 deals going and one falls out, you don't like it.
Right.
It stings, but you're not like gonna go drown your sorrows. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like there's a lot to it. So I mean, building up the pipeline leads really comes down to consistency of either marketing or prospecting, either one.
Yeah.
Bringing in those leads, making sure that you have a ton, following up with them. Who calls your leads?
We've got an assistant on staff that handles all the follow-up.
Okay.
And we're big into automation, so we don't really make the property visits anymore. We don't make the offers. We don't do the follow-up. We have staff for that, and I don't want to sound like, oh, you know what it's like, right? You got a team, and that's the benefit of a team, to where you are essentially, you're moving from the entrepreneur role to the CEO of your business. Okay, I've got my marketing team. They're doing this. You catch them, you skin them, your sales, you're over here, your follow-up, you're managing our operations, you're making sure our automation is functioning as designed.
Yeah.
So what we've essentially done is become to the point where, we map out the landscape of this beautiful architecture that we want to have.
Yeah.
And then we build it, put the people and the processes in place, and let it run. And we sit there and watch the dashboard and make sure it's doing what we intended.
I love it. It
took a while to get there, but
sure.
It's beautiful when you arrive. It's kind of like nirvana. It's like, oh, all right. So now then you start to fiddle. Do I want to turn my marketing up?
Right.
Okay, we got too many leads for the current infrastructure. Let's turn that down a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's self.
How much do you work in your business now?
I don't know if it's a Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, but it's certainly not 40.
Right.
So that's for sure. So it's kind of like you're working part-time, but you're receiving full-time.
More time with the family.
And that's what really matters. Yeah.
Doing whatever you want to do. You started a new podcast.
Yeah.
Tell everybody about that.
So I did elect to start a podcast. I've sometimes considered myself a little bit of a private person, and didn't necessarily want to share everything that I've gone through in the world. But what I realize is my personal development journey that started a decade back, we're all on a journey, right? We are all on a process of growth. And unfortunately, people these days they'll come across a secret and they want to hoard it. They won't share it with the world. Yeah. And I feel like some of the things that I've learned in my personal development journey they're just gold nuggets. It's like everyone should be entitled to this information.
Yeah, sure.
Why can't they be? It's like, oh, well, maybe they couldn't afford it, or we did pay that guru 5 figures to teach us and mentor us and all that. So what I've done is created a podcast called Learn How to See Better. And it's out there on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, everywhere. And really, it's just a story of my personal development journey, the lessons I've learned in my life, and how I've been able to see better in my world, and how that's served me in everything I'm doing today as a father, a husband, and an entrepreneur.
Love it. And you own a dozen rentals.
Yep.
You've got $1 million business. And you no longer have to, and you don't have a boss.
I don't have a boss. Well,
right?
Mrs. Davis, of course.
Sure.
I got to answer to somebody, but
How can people reach out to you? Do you have an email, Instagram?
We can find us pretty easily on Facebook, Instagram. That Drew Spencer Davis is my full name. Hard to botch that. At Risha Davis. We're both wholesale and we're on Facebook.
Yeah.
Risha Drew Davis out there. We got a public profile, so we're real easy to find. YouTube, some stuff's out there as well. But we are just givers. And everything that we've learned, we find ourselves spilling and giving to others. So if you find us, you're probably going to benefit in some way, shape, or form.
Love it.
And we'd love to connect with you if you're an inspiring wholesaler, real estate investor, landlord, entrepreneur of any type. Reach out, let's connect. We'd love to see how we can help you and add value to your life.
Love it. You're the man. I'm so glad you came in.
Appreciate you so much.
And everybody out there, If you are interested in joining the most proactive group in real estate investing, it is, and you look good in that t-shirt. You look a lot better than me. It is the TTP program. Go to wholesalinginc.com/TTP. Check out the testimonials. Check out the step-by-step what you're going to learn. If it feels good in your gut, sign up for a call. Would love to work with you personally. Until next time, you guys are the best. Go out, take action, and talk to people. See ya.
See you later.